G'day guys, how's it going? Bloodteeth here, bringing you another video after a very long break because the guy who created GemCraft, well, all of the GemCrafts, has finally released another one. Yes, it is called, what is it called? GemCraft Frostborn Wrath. I haven't followed his vlog recently, where he goes ahead and explains during his whole development cycle where this particular one fits in. I suspect it might be one that follows on after, I suppose, GemCraft Labyrinth. I think that was technically GemCraft 2. I don't know, I always had troubles keeping up with where every single version of GemCraft actually fit within the storyline. But anyway, we've got a new one, and I'm just trying to... What am I trying to do right now? I'm trying to very desperately level up this damn gem and break open this wizard stash. There's a new gimmick. I'm not sure if it repeats gimmicks of GemCraft Chasing Shadows. I forget whether or not you broke open certain tomes. I think you did break open certain tomes to get certain things or unlock certain stuff like, I don't know, skills for your gems or your wizard, or other stuff such as like the battle traits and so forth. But that is the gimmick for this game. When you do... Oh jeez, I'm getting wrecked. When you do play this game, what you would be recommended to do is to go ahead and break open as much stuff as possible. Now, these particular, extraneous buildings and so forth, they may or may not contain good stuff in them. Oh jeez, one shadow core. That was a success story. But yeah, the general sort of premise of how to start and progress in this particular game is actually quite similar to the way you would play GemCraft Chasing Shadows, and also quite similar to, I suppose, GemCraft Labyrinth as well. All three of these games are very good games, by the way. For those of you who have never played GemCraft series games, or have never really played this particular type of tower defense game, these are very good tower defense games, I have to admit. They've been made by a single developer, or at least I think it's still made by a single developer. His name is Peter. He's from Hungary. Very nice guy. Very humble guy, actually. Quite nice as far as developers go. Very approachable. And these games, like, they just took the whole idea of tower defense and took it to a whole new level in terms of trying to make your towers as configurable as they can be, being able to control the mechanics of the game itself and so forth. It's very advanced, and also the user interface is actually quite good too in game. It wasn't always the story. The first game, while it was groundbreaking, was shall we say, it was a little bit clunky, a little bit shaky, but for the most part it was still quite enjoyable. But the series really came into its own when the second game, GemCraft Chapter 0, was released. In that version there was a whole litany of extra stuff that you could do. It was the invention of, I think, traps that you could put in the floor. And yeah, that was a great game too. But anyway, I'm rubbishing on about a whole bunch of previous games in the series, a little bit too much. Let's talk about this one. Now, firstly, GemCraft Lost Chapter, Frostborn Wrath. This is only available, and you can correct me on this, but I think it's only available on Steam. This is the first game in the series that's only available on Steam. Every other game has been a Flash game that I've personally played on game sites like armorgames.com. But this one is only available on Steam. You do have to pay to play it. Another, I suppose, difference between this version and all of the other previous GemCrafts. All the other ones you could play for free, and I think the third and fourth generations, those games you could pay for extra content, which was actually highly recommended if you wanted to take the game seriously, which I did, and they were relatively cheap. This one, on the other hand, was quite expensive compared to them, but in my opinion, for the many hours of fun you're going to have, it's still highly recommended, at least from me. I believe the price difference was basically, I think, for GemCraft Labyrinth, the third game, you had to pay $7 for a whole bunch of extra content, or at least $7 AU. Because I'm Australian, I don't know what it converted to in other countries, but that's how much it was for me. Or was it $7 US and it converted up to like 9 or something like that? Anyway, that was about the price point. Aussie dollar over Steam, this particular game cost me $19. Now, it might seem quite a bit for what is essentially a tower defense game by an indie developer, but you know what? It's still cheaper than, say, Minecraft. And while I wouldn't say that you would get hours and hours and hours of fun and replayability the same in this game as you would in something like Minecraft, you still get a lot of fun. So it's still quite worth it, especially if you like tower defense games. Give it a shot. Now, let's get into this. I'm going to assume that you guys who are listening to this video have already played, a GemCraft game before. Most likely quite a few GemCraft games, just like me. And this one is kind of a similar story, except thankfully it's not in Flash on the browser. This is a standalone game. I'm not sure exactly how it's supposed to be, how it was coded, whether or not it's still technically a Flash game or not. But this game is actually, it's reasonably fast in terms of playability. Like, it's not like some of the earlier games that were quite laggy. Actually, to be honest, there have been quite a lot of performance enhancements made by the developer throughout the iterations. A couple of them were actually quite clever. I think there was one that was enhanced in GemCraft Labyrinth quite a while after the release of the game, where, oh geez, I better be careful, I'm going to get wrecked here as well. There was a enhancement made whereby drawing monsters and entities that need to be tracked throughout the entire game in Flash does take up quite a bit of processing power, but the developer got around that by going ahead and forcing the game to only draw at most 7 monsters in any tile. Now, looking at this particular video right now, you'd think, how the hell would that actually do anything? Like, there's no way. But if you go ahead and say, if you anger all of the waves by putting a really big gem in here and then sending all the waves and continuing to send waves of monsters, and some of those monster tiles might be swarms, for example, like it could be swarm after swarm after swarm, this map will fill up very quickly with monsters. And that limit, that one little limit that he put in, turned, I think, GemCraft Labyrinth into a game that was actually quite playable and quite easy to beat on endurance, as opposed to prior to that change where the game would literally get right down to an absolute crawl of, say, 1 frame every 3 or 4 seconds. Like, it was insanely ridiculous. Sometimes it would just be unplayable. Mind you, that wouldn't stop the die-hard GemCraft players from playing it. By the way, what I just did, I don't know why I just did that. I am at Wizard level 0 in this little playthrough. Oh, that actually worked out quite well. Look at this. There we go. Still got my mana. Haha, sucked in. This is how you start out. This game actually, it's got quite a lot of a sort of a tutorial aspect to it when you start out. And that tutorial aspect, while it tapers off, obviously, as you go throughout the game, and you've learnt quite a bit, it still is quite, it's still available. It still presents itself as a tutorial whenever new things crop up. And I think that's actually quite good of the developer to do that, because some games you're left scratching your head wondering, what do I do next? But in this game, so long as you take the time and you have the patience to just read a little bit of what goes on the screen instead of just clicking, click here, click there, next. If you just read a little bit, you'll pick up all of the information you need to progress and continue forward and learn how to play the game. And to be honest, there's not that much in terms of having to remember all at the same time. Like the tutorial, the way this game ramps up in terms of playability, things to remember and so forth, isn't overly fast. So you get a chance to, read some knowledge and then absorb it and then apply it as you go. So it's not so bad. Let's see. But other than that, you've got similar mechanics, I suppose, to the previous game. You've got your usual towers, gems, etc., so on and so forth. You can build walls on paths, just like you could in the last 3 or 4 games. No, since Labyrinth, I believe, when monsters were actually given pathing. And as usual, what you can do, if you've got enough mana, is you can combine gems to make them more powerful, and also you can mix up their colours to, I think the bonus is if you have a gem with 2 or more colours in the mix, it will gain 40% extra damage output compared to a gem with a single pure colour. But the penalty, I think, is 70% of... I think it's a 70-70 split or something like that of the power of the abilities of your gems. And that's if it's a even split on the mixing. If you start mixing in something like, say, these two and then this, and then you combine that for a gem that's of grade 3, but it's only 1 out of 4 parts purple. That's where the game will go ahead and calculate the proper the amounts of special abilities of armor tearing versus poison damage for this particular example. That's always been true since the first game. Unfortunately, unlike the first game, there is no such thing as super gemming, where people could make a grade 2 gem and then they could, or was it a grade 3 gem? Something like that, and then they kept on, instead of progressing the gem up its grades, they would go ahead and continue to mix in gems with the lower grade and combining it, and that would make the gem ridiculously overpowered. That was actually an issue that had to be addressed for, I think, the next game in the series. Doesn't exist anymore. You can still do that sort of thing, but honestly, it's not really worth it. If you're going to go ahead and combine gems, you may as well combine to upgrade. Oh wow, have I lost this one too? I should do less talking, more playing, hey? But anyway, this game, it starts out relatively easy, and you can, with a little bit of the tutorials and so forth, you can sort of muddle your way through. You can learn a little bit more about the storyline, which, these pages go ahead and progress with. You unlock certain tiers, you learn about these things that you get, and you can use them later on and so forth, and just generally build up your vocabulary of exactly how to play this game, and all of the aspects that are a part of it. You can look through your journey notes. I personally don't. Oh, Labyrinth. Oh, okay. This kind of... Okay, here we go. Here's something to do with the storyline. I believe that's a pretty good explanation, actually. Let's see. You've got your achievements. This is a good place to come if you want to try and see if you can just sort of pick out, getting extra skill points here and there. It's a less important, I suppose, later on in the game, when skill points are much more easily achieved through just trying to level up your wizard and get as much XP as you can through certain levels. But in the early game, look out for all of these ones. What you can do is you can focus on gems that are locked, or gems that are... not gems, sorry. Achievements that are either locked, or achievements that are... they focus on specifically anything to do with amplifiers or gem-specific stuff. Let's see, what have I got? Amplifier gem. Strengthen your orb with a gem in an amplifier. I haven't actually done that in my other game. Strengthen your orb with 7 gems in amplifiers. I haven't done that either. 8 okay, amplifier gem with 8 other gems. I've done that. But yeah, anyway, you can use this to sort of focus on little things that you can do, and you can get a skill point here and there. It really does make a difference a lot during the early game, so I recommend that you go ahead and focus on that. Later on, what you can do is you can do this talisman thing. Now, this is very similar to... I forget the name of it, but in GemCraft, GemCraft Chasing Shadows, that's the previous one. there was sort of like a system whereby there was an outer pentagon and an inner pentagon, where you could go ahead and put these fragment pieces into edges or corners or something like that, and you could keep on building up that whole double ring, I suppose, of fragments to get all of these extra little boosts that sum up to a whole bunch of extra things for your wizard every time you played a level, that allowed you to use your fragment bonuses. Say for example, starting the game with more mana, or doing more damage to giants, etc., so on and so forth. Lots and lots of different aspects that can be boosted through the use of that fragment system. And this fragment system is very similar, except it's slightly different in that instead of you just going ahead and using either edge or corner pieces to fit inside a couple of pentagons, you've got this system where you get puzzle pieces instead as fragments. And what you have to do is you have to fit puzzle pieces in these fragment slots, I suppose, to make up the 5x5 puzzle, of which most of them are locked. You have to pay shadow cores to unlock these talisman tiles, I suppose you could call them. And you just sort of try and fill them out as you go. That will help you out a little bit. And of course, just like the other talismans that you picked up in the previous game, you can upgrade them, but in this particular game you can add them to a shape collection. You can absorb them by sacrificing them to add them to the shape collection. I'll actually show you my other game, but basically you fill up this particular shape collection here, and if a shape is in your shape collection and you get a shaped talisman that doesn't fit where you have a spot open. Say for example, I've got these 4 slots. These are all filled with talismans, and I need something that has like a shape with that's an inner shape that needs to fit into another piece, and I don't have that. Then for a certain cost you can change your current talisman. Now it's a one-off cost to change the talisman until you've finished with it and you close out, or you put it actually no, it's only when you close out. You pay once to change the shape of your talisman, and you can only change your talisman to the shapes that you've already unlocked. Naturally there's nothing unlocked here. I would have to sacrifice talismans with their specific shapes as they come when I collect them in the game, to go ahead and convert a talisman to that shape. So it becomes a bit of a pain actually. It's quite costly on the shadow cores. You pay to essentially unlock a talisman tile if you need to. You need to pay to change the shape of a fragment. You need to sacrifice fragments to help fill up your shape collection. If you don't do that, then you won't be able to change your fragments into certain shapes. So obviously, every time, especially in the early game, I would just recommend, if you can't fit something in here, just go ahead and sacrifice it to the shape collection. Don't sacrifice to destroy the fragment to get a few shadow cores, because you don't get much. It's not really worth it. Trust me, just add to your shape collection and get that all nice and filled out for like the first 50 odd levels that you play, I recommend. So that way you've got some options when you need to change around your shapes. But just like in the other game with your talismans, you can also upgrade your fragments as well, or talismans, whatever you want to call them. Oh, okay. So I thought I was going nuts for a second there. I wasn't. They've used the word talisman is being used here. Oh, you put fragments in your talisman. That makes sense. I thought they were referring to the same thing, talismans and fragments. Nope, that's just me being an idiot. Ignore that. Yeah, go ahead and have a play with this. Fill it up. It sounds complicated, especially after all that time I spent going ahead and explaining it, but honestly, it's not that complicated once you get into it. Just have a play, fill up your talisman with your fragments. Yay, correct terminology. And get your added bonuses up and running. It really does make a bit of a difference, especially when you upgrade your fragments as well. Now, skills. This is pretty similar to what you've seen in Labyrinth and also in Chasing Shadows. And actually even Chapter 0, I believe you had some skills that you could dump points into. Skills, basically speaking, you want to get as many skills as you can. Some of the best ways to get skills is the aforementioned going ahead and trying to get achievements. Also, you can try and get skill points by upgrading your wizard level. I believe you get... how much for every single... I think you get 5 skill points for every time you upgrade your wizard level. How do you upgrade your wizard level? You get XP. How do you get XP? You just play the levels and you replay the levels if you can to try and get yourself more XP. Now, the amount of XP you get is not the amount that you gain in a level. It's the difference between the amount you gain in the level and the amount that you've previously got as your highest XP for that level. And by that level, I actually mean whichever mode you're playing on a level. Every level has 3 modes. You've got journey mode, which you have to play first time for every single level. That's just the normal journey mode. You know, you got a certain amount of tiles that you have to go through for your monster waves. You've just got to plow through it, and you can use any battle traits you got here. Plus, also you've got your skills, your talismans, etc. Endurance mode is a little bit different. Endurance mode isn't quite the same as the endurance mode in previous games. Actually, it works a little bit different. It starts off with 40 monster stones, and there is no continuing on beyond that, so you can complete an endurance mode. Battle length is 30 waves. Basically how endurance works is every time you complete endurance on any level, not a specific level but any level, then I believe the amount of battle waves that are added to your endurance is 4 or something like that. So every time you beat endurance, the length of waves in endurance on all of the levels increases. So basically the idea of endurance, you use endurance to try and go as far as you can, get as much XP as you can, and you continue doing that with all of your levels all over the map, and that's how you can ramp up XP. But to be honest, it's actually quite hard to do endurance early on. So maybe in the mid game, after you've unlocked maybe quite a few of these tiles all over the place and you're starting to get your skill points and your talisman up and running nicely, then maybe start trying to tackle endurance. But that's endurance. Very important. Stick to it. Try and keep that one in mind. And lastly, we have something called trial mode. Trial mode is actually quite tricky. Almost every single level has a trial mode. Not all of them, but most. And trial mode, basically, well, the tooltip is right there. You can forget all of your skills, your talisman, and all of your extra stuff that you've unlocked so far in your journey. Every time you try a level in trial mode, basically each level has its own set amount of skills that it gives you, talisman that it gives you, which I don't think is anything ever, and also battle traits are fixed to a certain amount if they're fixed to anything at all. So trial mode, you cannot make it easier or harder for yourself. It's the mode for that level, and you can try it to try and beat it. The thing about trial mode is that these wizard stashes, which are shown in yellow on the map when you select the correct mode for each level, these wizard stashes exist on every level, almost every level, I think, for one of the modes, and the majority of them I found actually existed in trial mode. So get used to trying trial modes. It's a bit of a grind, but it's well worth it if the wizard stash is found on that mode. If it's not, then yay hooray. If it's in journey mode or endurance mode, then you got lucky. Basically your job is to break it open. In journey mode, just break it open and beat the journey mode, and that way you get your wizard stash, which may contain stuff like battle traits, and and other stuff like that, like unlocking skills and all the other good stuff. But if it's in endurance mode, you don't have to beat endurance mode. You just need to crack open your wizard stash, and that's it. If you crack open your wizard stash before you either beat or lose endurance mode, it will remember that and you will get the goodies. So that's it, pretty much. Journey mode, endurance, and trial. Wizard stashes, I highly recommend you go for the wizard stashes as much as you can. It's hard to see, but for each level, each tile that represents each level, you've got your journey mode will be lit up in blue. I think, actually, you know what? Let's get out of this and load the game that I've been playing. It's a little bit more progressed. Here we go. Okay, this is level 1, W1. Light blue represents the journey mode. Blue represents endurance, and purple represents the trial mode. Now, if it's lit up on a tile, that means it's been beaten by you. Well, endurance is a bit of a funny one. All you have to do is play endurance, and you will beat it, because there is no lower limit to beating an endurance. All you have to do is play it, and that's it. Now, it's very hard to see, but if you can see on this particular tile, in the middle slot, which is the endurance slot, there's like a dark black line, a dash there. And you might see them also exist on some of these tiles where the indicators of which mode has been beaten is round. There's a little black dot here in the endurance slot. The black dot is a way for you to look at a tile on this overall map and determine where the wizard stash is, in which mode. In this particular one, it's endurance, but it doesn't say so because I haven't beaten this in journey mode yet. But if we look at something, let's find one where I haven't got the wizard stash, but I have beaten it in journey mode. Oh jeez, I thought I had. Here we go. When you hover over a tile that you've played and beaten in journey mode, if it doesn't have a wizard stash in journey mode that you've cracked open, then in your tooltip here, it will tell you on your field tooltip where the locked wizard stash is. In this case, it's in endurance. Funny thing about that particular one, I've tried to crack open this one a few times, but I've had troubles with it because some of these wizard stashes have either shields, which have a 1-to-1 ratio of reducing per shot, which is a pain. Doesn't matter how powerful your gem is, each shot reduces a shield by 1. So it might have shields, and on top of that it might have a lot of armor, and on top of that it might have a lot of hit points. So the act of trying to crack open this particular wizard stash, it has been difficult for me because I just have not lasted long enough to actually do it in endurance, and that's with me setting battle traits down to nothing as well. And it's also in an awkward spot as well. I would not want to put my main gem that I fire everything on all the way down there. I'd want to put it somewhere closer to, say, my wizard orb, to give myself a better chance of going ahead and getting more shots fired against, all of the monsters. In fact, let's just quickly try this. I know this has been a long video, guys, but I'm going to wrap it up soon. Let's just give this a crack and see if I can beat this in endurance mode. Oh, and just like in the previous game, your unspent skill points actually go towards your starting mana. Now, I could spend most of these skill points, but to be honest, I like having that much mana to start with. And also, let's see, is there anything that tells me... I'm just looking for somewhere that tells you where all of my boosts are from my talisman. There's nothing I can look at to bring that up, so you know what, let's just play this. Let's see... If I do this... and this... and basically just lock off all of the ways in. I wonder what happens if I smack those open with 2 bolts. Well, let's find out. Yeah, okay. 6,000 armor and 1,000 hit points. So, long story short, doesn't really matter, at least at the stage that I'm at, it doesn't really matter how powerful my main gem can be. Even if I go ahead and give it something like a bolt every now and then to shoot at this wizard's dash, I'm going to be taking it down 1 hit point at a time for every single shot, and I'm going to be busy focusing my all of my fire on monsters. So yeah, instead what I'll do is I'll just put a couple of gems here. They don't have to be powerful gems, they just need to be armor tearing gems. I'm going to have them slowly chip away at just the wizard's dash, and as for my main gem, I'm just going to go ahead and create something that will hopefully stop me from dying, but that's quite difficult. Now let's go ahead and, you know what, I'm going to do this as well. Yep, I'm going to put a tiny little bit of poison damage in a trap. It's not going to do much, but yeah, well, something's better than nothing. And I'm not so interested in the specials on my main gem. Maybe a little bit into the armor tearing, because monsters, their armor ramps up quite quickly actually as you progress through the tiles. So I'll go ahead and create a main gem that does mostly that, and I'll put some extras and amplifiers to help boost its range. Eventually I'll get enough amplifiers and a high enough gem grade to go ahead and hit the monsters that come along this top track as well. But until that happens, I'm just going to have to make do. But that's fine. Yeah, it's going to take a while. Sorry, I haven't been able to actually turn on the sound. If I do, the sound itself actually dominates the recording. Let me show you. Do you hear that? That's at 1%. Yeah. You know what? Go ahead and play the game yourselves so you can hear for yourself what the sounds are like. The sounds are actually quite good. I have to admit, for a game that is done by an indie developer, this is a relatively well-polished game. It's quite good. Yeah, that's my recommendation. Give it a shot. You won't be disappointed if you like tower defense games. It's really quite good. Now the user interface is quite smooth. There's lots of hotkeys that help you do things. It's a really good game. Let me just turn that off. Ooh. I don't like the position I'm in already. I really want to upgrade this gem. There we go. Alright, where are we at with this wizard's dash? Did that start at 6,000? I think it did, didn't it? Yeah, it must have, because we're already at wave 15. Alright, how are we going? We are going good enough for, I think, another amplifier. That's alright. I don't want to anger the waves, even if it gives me a little bit more gems for each kill. Sorry, mana for each kill. At this point, I really don't want to bother doing that, because in a level like this... Oh wow, that's a lot of giants all in a row. Okay, that's different. Yeah, I find that sometimes there's quite a lot of giants mixed in with a lot of wave stones that are for swarmlings. So, as you know, if you've played these games before, the swarmlings, they usually take up a lot of the time and energy of your main gem for firing. So, really, you get no time at all to actually go ahead and... Oh, wow, what? Okay, that was easy. You get no time at all to go ahead and fire at the giants. You have to pick and choose. And it's not the easiest thing to have to keep on changing priorities and so forth. I mean, it's not the worst thing either. You can always pause the game by pressing the space bar and then changing a priority, however, and you can cheese it that way, but I'm not quite there yet. To be honest, I've been playing this game quite lazy and been quite successful with it too. Oh, one fun little tidbit. After you break open a wizard stash, I can actually go ahead and lose this now just to prove a point. Once you crack open the wizard stash and you get the goodies, you can actually play over a level again once more with an opened wizard stash, and you can actually break open further or destroy that opened wizard stash for a few more. I think it's shadow cores or something like that. Wizard stashes don't always hold something great. This is pretty good in terms of if I wanted to actually get shadow cores, which I kind of do, but I was actually hoping to unlock a new skill or a new talisman fragment. No, not a talisman fragment. This is a talisman fragment. I wanted to unlock either a skill or a battle trait, and I've got quite a few battle traits unlocked right now, so I was hoping for more skills, like one for, say, the orange gem. That would be great, but I didn't get it this time. I don't think there's any way of knowing what is inside each stash, so it's just a matter of crack them open and see what you get. This is my skills at the moment. I really would like more skills for the different gems, and also a few more of these enhancements and strike spells. That would be great too. Yeah, I seem to be going okay there in this department, so I can't complain. Let's see, talisman. I always try and convert first. If I've already collected the shape, then, well, it's not a rare fragment. 13 out of 100. That's pretty crappy actually, and I don't need any, so I'm just going to go ahead and destroy that. Get some shadow cores. Do I actually have enough to... I do! There you go. I'm going to unlock a talisman tile. And I just realized I sacrificed an edge fragment. Oh, but you know what? I sacrificed it for a little bit more than what I've got remaining, so I had to sacrifice it just to unlock that tile. Okay. By the way, this is just a glimpse at what some of all my talisman fragments are. That's where I'm at the moment, and I'm wizard level 110. Just to show you some of my exploits really recently, actually, where I've got the highest XP. I've got to a point where I'm able to get almost 100,000 XP in endurance for some of the really early levels. They seem to be giving me the easiest runs in terms of wave stones and stuff, and also, you know, the way the design of the map, it's fairly linear as well. That works out to my advantage as well. And for maps where you've got the orange gem, there's quite a lot of potential there. At the moment I haven't unlocked the orange gem in my skills, so I can't force it to be on all the time for every single map, so that kind of sucks, but I'm just waiting for that. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. I kind of hit a wall, and you'll probably do this as well, starting from the start. What you'll do is you'll play through the maps, and you probably won't go back and play endurance or anything like that in any of these for a while. You'll just keep on unlocking all of these map sort of fragments and all of the level stones within them as well. That's perfectly fine. I got to a point where I unlocked down to about, let's see, somewhere here in O, and then I got stuck, so I tried to go up here, and I got stuck in U1, I think, as well. So that's when I finally hit a wall, and I thought, okay, I obviously need more skills, I need more this and that, I need more points. So that's when I started to go back and start playing through all of the endurances, and also all of the trials that were holding all of those wizard stashes as well. That's something I wish I knew at the start and went for, because I think it actually prolonged my progression in this game. I highly recommend you focus on those wizard stashes, guys. Focus on those, keep progressing, keep filling with your skills, your talismans, keep an eye on your achievements, and you'll be fine, and you'll play the game, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Anyway, that's enough rambling from me. See you at the next video. Ciao.